One of the most common questions we get is, how do I know if this is a good deal when it comes to booking points flights? You don't need to go through all the complicated points math. I recommend instead that you use a rule of thumb, where you pay up to 10,000 points per hour of flight time in business class. It makes decision-making way easier. And in today's video, we're going to cover how to stretch your points by flying some really, really long flights in business class. If you're listening to this on the podcast, I also recommend following along on YouTube or Spotify video exclusives so that you can see the visuals as well. Let's jump right in. First up on our list of longest business class flights that you can book on points is Atlanta over to Johannesburg, South Africa. This flight is almost 16 hours and it's a direct flight, so let's see how we can fly this in business class because that would be a very long flight in economy. Rather than booking this directly through Delta, I would recommend using a Star Alliance partner where you can likely get the exact same flight for cheaper. And my recommendation would be to go to Air France for this one. So let's go to airfrance.us and click on the tab Book with Miles. I've also found that it's easier to find availability for this particular route going back. So finding flights from Johannesburg back to Atlanta, we're going to leave the departure date blank. We're going to search for one adult business class and go ahead and search for flights. And because we left the departure date blank, Air France will show us the full calendar by month and will also show us the cheapest points price for any particular month. So here in December, we see a few different days where you can actually fly this route for only 95,000 miles per person each way in business class. So let's go ahead and click one of these and see what we find. This one actually does connect through Paris, where it's Johannesburg through Paris on over to Delta, and it does connect on Air France, so it's not the exact same Delta route, but it does only cost 95,000 miles if you wanted to fly that in business class. Let's compare that to what would happen if we tried to fly this with Delta directly. So here, if we wanted to search from Johannesburg over to Atlanta for the same date, which was December 23rd, for one passenger in business or first class, let's go ahead and click go. That would be 325,000 points if booked directly with Delta, but you can get a similar experience if you are willing to do a connection in Paris by flying the same route with Air France for only 95,000 miles instead. That's 16 hours in business class for only 95,000 points. That's amazing, but we can do even better in the upcoming tutorials. Also, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you feel like you jumped into the deep end of points and miles, don't worry. We offer a free Points and Miles 101 course for you to help you earn and redeem points for your first redemption. The course covers acronyms, credit score, and how to get free upgrades and more. Grab the free course at geobreezetravel.com/free course or check out the link in the description box. Up next, we have a 16-hour flight that you can fly for only 80,000 points in business class. Pause this video to guess the route, and then unpause to continue and see if you guessed right. Our next example for longest business class flights that you can book on points would include Qantas flights, either from Perth to London, which is a direct flight on Qantas, or you could fly between Melbourne and Dallas, which is a 16-hour flight direct with Qantas as well. Since most of the audience is based in the United States, let's do this flight from DFW over to Melbourne and show you guys how to find this particular flight. So since Qantas is a member of the One World Alliance, my favorite calendar to search for that alliance is with American Airlines. So we are going to go to aa.com, click on One Way, Redeem with Miles, and we are going to search from Dallas-Fort Worth over to Melbourne, Australia for one person, and we are going to see if we can find any availability. Let's go ahead and click on search. So on our first try, we see that we don't have anything in business class, which is when you would want to click on this calendar button. You're going to filter this to business or first. And there are a few days highlighted where we can fly this route for only 80,000 points, which is not bad at all given that it is a 16-hour flight in business class. Let's try the 23rd and see what that gets us. So here we can see it is the flight operated by Qantas. Main cabin would be 40,000 points per person each way, or business class for this direct flight would be 80,000 points plus $22.30 in taxes. Now, you want to be careful and make sure that you are only looking for nonstop flights if that is how you would prefer to fly this, because on the calendar, if we're filtering down to business or first class availability, there are a few other dates here. But if we were to select August 28th, it is still roughly the same price in business class where it's 80,000 points plus less than $40 in taxes and fees. But this is not a direct flight. This one's going to take you from Dallas to LAX to Sydney to Melbourne instead of having that direct 16-hour flight that's uninterrupted. So just something to watch out for, but if you do just want to fly to Australia or you are trying to find flights where there's at least 2 seats, this is not too bad of an itinerary for 80,000 points. American Airlines miles are a little bit harder to earn versus a lot of other airlines, and that's because Bilt is the only flexible transfer partner that transfers over to American Airlines. Whereas with other oneworld partners like British Airways, you can move nearly any flexible points currency, Chase, Amex, Bilt, Capital One, all of those will move over to British Airways. However, when I searched for this same flight on British Airways, trying to book it with Avios from Dallas over to Melbourne on August 23rd, we do still see that one business class available, but it's going to cost a lot more. This is going to be $154.5 thousand Avios plus $60.40 in taxes and fees for the exact same business class route operated by Qantas. So if at all possible, I would prefer to try to just move Bilt points into American Airlines or use some American Airlines miles to book that exact same flight for only 80,000 points instead. This route is a little bit tricky to find. Even with the American Airlines calendar that lets you search all the different months at a time, most months didn't have anything. It's notoriously difficult to try to find partner availability on Qantas. What I would recommend doing is if you can go to seats.aero, click on Explore and highlight American Airlines. I would suggest getting the Pro version here and checkbox the extended availability. Let's say that you wanted to go between North America and Oceania, and you are looking for Dallas Fort Worth over to Melbourne, sort by where there is business class availability. There is only one date that has that direct route, and that was the one that we found on August 23rd. There are a few different routes where you could do the connecting flights, like we saw, where you might have to go through Los Angeles or Sydney before going over to Melbourne, and that's what the blue highlights are for. But unfortunately, this route is a little bit more difficult to find. And then if we wanted to go backwards from Oceania over to North America, there is no availability with that direct flight. It's all of these connecting flights for 80,000 points. So just something to keep in mind that this one is a little bit more of a unicorn if you want to fly the 16-hour business class route with Qantas. 16 hours for only 80,000 points? That's only 5,000 points per hour of Qantas business class flight time. That is fantastic. Are you enjoying these types of tutorials? If yes, please let me know. Click that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for even more points and miles tips each week. We release a weekly video with these types of step-by-step tutorials. Also, we have a podcast where I interview points enthusiasts about different strategies every week. Not every long-distance flight has some magical trick for saving a bunch of money by using points. Up next is the route we get asked about the most. Here's the best way I found to get this 17-hour flight with points. This next route that we're going to cover is from JFK over to Manila, and it is a 17-hour flight. This is one of the most common route requests that I get is how do I get to the Philippines on points? And especially if you want to fly from New York, there is only one direct flight. It is with Philippine Airlines, which is not an alliance partner. So most of the time, I recommend that people fly through another hub in Asia, whether it's going through Japan, flying JAL or ANA, going through Taiwan and flying EVA, going through Singapore to fly Singapore Airlines or any of the other Asian airlines, just because this one is pretty tough to book, given that Philippine Airlines isn't in an alliance. It does, however, have a code share with ANA, so technically you could find this flight through ANA, book it that way. ANA does have its downsides where you can only book round-trip tickets. It takes about 3 days to transfer Amex points over. Amex points are the only flexible currency that transfer over to ANA. So there's a lot that makes this prohibitively difficult, not to mention that you can't actually find any of these availabilities on ANA's website. You have to call ANA and speak to a representative and ask them, hey, do you have any available Philippine airline flights on ANA? And then they will find dates for you. There are not going to be very many dates available, and there's usually just 1 or 2 business class seats available via miles if you wanted to fly on Philippine Airlines this way. And this person on Reddit notes that call times can be really, really long if you're booking with ANA. So we are going to cover an alternative way to do this using American Express points. So what you're going to need are some American Airlines miles. You're going to log in. And then once you're logged into American Express, you're going to click on Rewards and Benefits. You're going to highlight Earn and Redeem, Redeem for Travel. Then you are going to search for flights from JFK over to Manila, and then pick any date that you would like. You're going to search for one traveler in business class for now, and then click go. And if you were looking for the nonstop flight, go ahead and select nonstop. And this will show you that direct flight from JFK over to Manila on Philippine Airlines. It's about $3,000 if you were to just pay the cash price, and Amex will give you 1 cent per point if you want to cash out your points to fly this flight. That means it's going to cost 309,000 points to fly this, and I would not recommend doing that. If I wanted to go to the Philippines in business class, I would instead route through Singapore, I would route through Taipei, I would route through Japan. I would try to just do a non-direct flight and save myself a ton of points that way. But if you really want to fly Philippine Airlines business class, what I would recommend is that you get yourself an Amex Business Platinum card. And that is because with the Amex Business Platinum card, you get a 35% airline bonus. So you can receive 35% membership rewards points back after you use the Pay with Points feature for any flight booked on American Express Travel. So that means for this particular flight, you do need to have at least 309,000 points ready to go in your account. But once you pay with your points, you would get 35% of those points deposited back into your account. So net, you would be paying 201,253 points for this nonstop flight in business class between JFK and Manila on Philippine Airlines. I would still consider that overpriced. I would not want to pay 200,000 points to fly one way in business class on a 16.5-hour flight if that flight only has a cash price of about $3,000. Again, I would try to do something other than this, but if this is a route you really want to fly, get yourself the Amex Business Platinum card for the 35% rebate. So the Amex Business Platinum gives you a 35% points rebate. That's cool, but that's still going to be 201,000 points for a 17-hour flight, i.e., you are spending nearly 12,000 points per hour in business class with Philippine Airlines, and that is not great. We do often recommend products like Chase, Amex, and Capital One in our videos. Yet, I cannot stress enough, the best way to maximize your points is to transfer them to different travel partners, not to redeem the points through those credit card companies' websites or travel portals. If you're looking to earn more points, there are a couple of ways to do this. The first is to get credit cards that earn flexible points. We're talking Chase, Amex, Citi, Capital One, or Bilt, because those points can transfer to a lot of different places, and you won't be stuck with one airline. If you're not sure what card to get, we do offer free credit card consultations at geobreezetravel.com/consultations, and we'll send you personalized recommendations based on your particular goals, budget, and lifestyle. Or, if you prefer to earn more points without opening more and more cards, I totally understand. I've compiled some of my favorite ways for you to earn more points in a free webinar called You Do Not Need 20 Cards. Sign up for the free webinar at geobreezetravel.com/webinar. Up next, we have a 16-hour direct flight in one of the most glamorous business class products in the sky. But it's a route that I've seen very few people actually fly. Next up on longest business class flights that you can book with points is going to be the Emirates flight from Dubai all the way over to Auckland, New Zealand. This is a nearly 16-hour flight as well. So since it's with Emirates, you can book it a couple ways. You can either book it directly with Emirates or you can book it with Air Canada. Nearly every type of points will transfer over to Emirates and Air Canada. With Emirates, you can move Chase, Amex, Capital One, Citi, and Bilt points. And with Air Canada, you can move all of those except for Citi points. The easiest way to find availability for this particular route would be to go to seats.aero and click on Explore and then highlight Emirates. We are going to want to show the extended availability, and we want to go from Asia over to Oceania. Let's go ahead and search for New Zealand and see how much this would cost direct in business class. This is a very expensive flight. It is 178,000 points to fly one person, one way, in business class between Dubai and Auckland. Even though it is a 16-hour flight, even with my 10K rule, I wouldn't really want to spend more than 160,000 points to fly that, and I don't really want to spend 160,000 points to fly any route, so this would be a no for me for Emirates. Let's see if we can find the same thing cheaper for Air Canada. So on seats.aero, we'll go to search for Air Canada as well. We are going to search from Asia over to Oceania and search from DXB to KL. It's a little bit cheaper here. It's 128,000 points if you wanted to fly between Dubai and Auckland in Emirates. You would want to make sure you're highlighting over the points price and that it's going to show EK, which it does for all three of these for the direct route. And that's how you know it's going to be operated by Emirates. Again, 128,000 points isn't necessarily bad for a 16-hour flight with Emirates, but it's a little bit pricey for me. I don't think I'm going to be flying between Auckland, New Zealand and Dubai very often. So for me, I would probably skip out on this one. Most other people who are based in the US would be skipping it as well, just because there are so many other options where you can fly just as long for way fewer points, and more of those examples are coming up next. That's not a terrible redemption. 16 hours of flight time in Emirates business class for 128,000 points is only 8,000 points per hour of flight time. But I personally don't like to spend more than 100,000 points on any one-way flight. We can do better. Actually, we can do much better than that, and I'm going to show you how in the upcoming tutorials. We're talking as low as 4,000 points per hour of business class flight time. Also, if you're looking for even more next-level ways to make the most out of your points, we have a couple of options for you. The first is through the GeoBreeze Travel Patreon, which you can access through patreon.com/GeoBreezeTravel. Through the Patreon, we can prepare personalized step-by-step tutorials based on the exact routes that you want to see. We also host a live group coaching session each month. You can ask any questions that you have about points, travel, or anything else in the open forum. We also have a lot of people who join the $5 level just to say, thank you for the free content, and I am all here for that. Thank you, I appreciate it so much. The second option is for business owners or individuals who spend more than $100,000 a year on expenses. If that's you, we would love to chat with you about our points portfolio management offer. I don't know if you know, but you can get some incredible luxury travel with that level of spend. Book a free intro chat with us at geobreezetravel.com/intro call to learn more. All right. Here's the play for how to save on some of the longest business class flights in the world by using points. So we have about 5 flights left to cover, but this is going to go super fast because the process for finding business class availability on all of these different flights is pretty much the same. And that is because they are all Star Alliance flights, and if you are searching for good award space on Star Alliance flights, I would search through Air Canada. First up, we have the flight from JFK over to Auckland, operated by Air New Zealand. This is a 17-hour and 30-minute flight. In order to find this, I would go to seats.aero and click on Explore Air Canada. We are going to be searching from North America to Oceania, enable the extended availability, and we are going to try to search for flights to Auckland, direct and business class. So here we have quite a bit of availability if we wanted to go between Los Angeles and Auckland, IAH, Houston, San Francisco. Those look like they are our main options, and that's not bad at all for 75,000 points per person one way in business class. However, if we wanted to get that really, really long flight from JFK over to Auckland, there is just not a lot of availability for that particular route. So if you wanted to fly over to Auckland, my recommendation would be if you can position yourself over to the West Coast or over to Texas and fly one of these instead, that's still going to be a really, really good redemption, because a flight from IAH over to Auckland is still going to be 14 and a half hours in the air in business class, and that's only going to be 75,000 points. And you can see when we hover over the points price, the airline code is NZ, which stands for New Zealand, so you would still get to have 14 and a half hours in New Zealand business class. The next one we're going to cover is from San Francisco over to Bangalore, India. This is a direct flight operated by Air India, and it is nearly 18 hours in business class. Air India does not have the reputation for being the most glamorous of business classes, but if this is a route that you want to fly, here's how I would recommend finding it. Once again, we're going to go to seats.aero. We are going to highlight Air Canada, enable extended availability, searching from North America over to Asia, and we are going to search for BLR, which is the code that we want for Bangalore. So here we see there's nothing highlighted in green. Everything from San Francisco over to Bangalore has a connection where it's probably going from Air Canada through another airport in the Middle East, then over to Bangalore. We do have some economy availability where here you could get this flight direct. Oftentimes with Air India, you're looking for the airline code AI in order to be able to do that. But with a lot of these more aspirational, really long, direct flights where it's such a good deal because you get so much flight time in business class, it does get a little bit harder to find award availability. So in case you watch my videos thinking, how is she always finding such great availability? It's not always there. It can be a little bit difficult to find. I know we get a lot of requests for India. If you're trying to do this direct, it is just a little bit more challenging. So it might be worth looking into positioning flights or doing a connecting route through somewhere else in Asia or the Middle East. Another really long direct flight is from Sydney over to either Houston, or there's also flights between Sydney and Dallas-Fort Worth. those are going to be operated by United. They are nearly 19 hours. Exact same process for finding these. We're going to go through seats.aero, Explore, Air Canada, and we are going to be going between North America and Oceania. And here we would be searching for flights from Sydney. Sort by lowest business class, and here we can see direct flights from San Francisco to Sydney or LAX to Sydney, but nothing from those Texas airports, which just bumps it to a little bit longer of a flight. Flying direct from California over to Australia for only 75,000 or 87.5 thousand points with United is not a bad deal at all. Because if we wanted to calculate the flight time from Sydney over to San Francisco, that's about 13 and a half hours. Or if we wanted to go to LAX, that's 13 hours and 45 minutes, which is still a fantastic deal if you are looking to fly this direct, and it's going to be operated by United Airlines in United Polaris. So 13 hours in United Polaris for only 75,000 or 87.5 thousand points is a fantastic steal. And the longest direct flights in the world currently operated today for nonstop flights would be operated by Singapore Airlines, either from New York JFK Airport to Singapore, or from Newark EWR over to Singapore. Both are operated by Singapore Airlines, and both of them take about 19 hours. So if we wanted to fly this particular route, we would once again go to seats.aero, go to Air Canada, show extended availability from North America over to Asia, and search for flights to Singapore in direct business class. So here, once again, we are going to see a lot more from the West Coast. We're going to see routes from SFO, LAX, IAH, but if we want to search from the East Coast so that we can get those really long, uninterrupted, nonstop flights in Singapore Airlines business class, we can see that availability is much more limited. For example, if we are searching from Newark over to Singapore, there's only one date that has this direct flight availability. We do always want to hover over the points price that we see in seats.aero and make sure that we see the airline code SQ. That's how you know it will be operated by Singapore Airlines. So this search says that there should be one flight available. It's on June 11, 2024. Let's see if we can find this flight on Singapore Airlines. So you do always have the option of booking this directly on singaporeair.com. You're probably going to find a lot more availability that way, actually. So we are searching from Newark over to Singapore. I'm going to type in the date that we found on seats.aero, which was June 11, and we are searching for one adult in business class. And here we see that there is some saver space for this flight. You can fly in nearly 19 hours Singapore Airlines business class for 111.5 thousand points, which is not bad at all, but we can do better by booking through Air Canada. So we're going to go to aircanada.com, search for one-way book with airplane points from Newark over to Singapore on June 11 for one adult. And we do see there is one seat left for this New York over to Singapore flight, 19 hours operated by Singapore Airlines for only 87.5 thousand points. That means you could fly 19 hours for 87.5 thousand points in Singapore Airlines business class by booking this through Air Canada. And if you're interested in booking any of the other flights that we just talked about, whether it is California over to Auckland, or if you are looking to fly San Francisco over to Bangalore with Air India, or if you're looking to fly United Polaris over to Sydney, the process for searching for these flights using seats.aero on Air Canada and then searching for the actual flight and confirming the availability on aircanada.com is completely the same. So that is how you can fly some of the longest flights in the world in business class for way fewer points than you would expect. I hope you found those tutorials useful. Viewer requests on future topics are always welcome. Please let us know in the comments if there are any topics that you would like for us to do a deep dive on. In the meantime, if you like these types of tutorials, check out this video next.